Hello, I'm Barry Kimball, and I'd like to take a few minutes to show some in-depth features in the Fillet Flange tool that can allow you to make very precise engineering flanges on all kinds of openings and part gaps that you might encounter while designing various automotive or product parts. Um, to kind of explain a little bit on the ins and outs and why we have all these options in this Fillet Flange tool, requires a real world scenario. So I was fortunate in early 2000s to be involved in the Ford GT project, and I built this fender. This happens to be just off eBay. It's a fender that had a good view to show the flange that goes around this opening. This, by the way, is a $3,000 aluminum fender for a 2006 Ford GT. But what you can see here is at this bottom corner, you can kind of see the flange sticking out here. And then that flange begins to twist away. And as it gets to the top, right here, it's pointing upwards at a 45-degree angle. And then as it comes back down, it comes back to side view. Now that's due mostly to the fact that there's a tire in here, and when that tire moves around and turns and goes up and down, that's called jounce, and the tire gets very close to this fender. So if you had a half an inch flange sticking straight in, the tire would hit that flange. So typically on many cars, the flange goes up around the wheel arch. But that would cause some strange shapes if we didn't control the radius correctly before the flange is built. So I'm going to show how you can control that using some existing features that are in the Fillet Flange tool. So oftentimes what happens is you either have a curve or a surface that sets up what the side view of this thing's going to look like. So in this case, we've got a nice arc shape here. That's what the design wanted. I'm just going to set this to perspective with ortho faces. So right here is a straight flange in the side view. So what that allowed me to do is modify these surfaces, keep the opening line the same, but get the highlights to be nice and pure as they ran down the side of the car. Now next, we need really the fillet to be built based on this opening. If we don't build the fillet based on this straight flange, and we had an angle going up or an angle going down, the highlight of that fillet you would see would make this opening larger or more egg-shaped at the top. So we need a really precise way to control that. All right. So how we can do that, I'll just shut the flange off for a second. If we look at what the section, this might be the engineering requirement section at the top. So if we look at that straight in the front view, we want it to be a flange built perfectly straight, and then the fillet put on that. But then the fillet to continue around until it hits 45 degrees up and then create a flange. That's not that hard to do. The complicated part is to vary this flange angle from 45 degrees and wrap it around this fillet so that at the beginning or the horizontal and end, it's then side view. Okay. So we've got some very specific tools in here that allow you to control that, and I'll show those to you now. So this is just a factory reset right here. So this is just default. Okay, so if you open the tool straight away, this is it. So I'm going to turn on chain select and just grab this edge and point it this way and hit build. Again, all default. Okay. So if we go straight to a front view here and we look at our section, and you can see that this bright line here is the same plane as this line. So our radius is way too big. Well, I'm pretty sure that radius is 3. So we'll set that radius to 3, and now we can get going here. So what you can see here is that since the flange that's making this opening is currently be built, so the wall that creates the fillet, these two go together, that wall is being built 90 degrees or perpendicular to this exterior surface. And we kind of already said we want this opening line to remain the same in the side view. So I'm going to switch this to a draft surface in Y. And then if we watch here, Now the fillet is being built. Oops. The fillet is being built based on that opening. But then we see here that it starts to go downhill. So one thing that we can do to visualize, what did the wall I just built to construct this fillet, what did that look like? Well, if we go down here in the bottom, I can turn on show wall. And the blue wall, that's what the fillet is being based on, right? So right now we have a fillet being built based on this flange that's kind of a construction flange. It's not really a flange used in the final model. And then if we look at the secondary flange, so first from top to bottom, we have the wall, right, this guy, to construct this fillet, next guy. And then we have a flange, this flange, that's going to be built off of the previous fillet. I don't want that to be a sweep angle. I want that to be based on a parting line and Y. Okay, and I'm going to just hit the space bar again. So now we can see that we've got a proper wall being constructed. So we've got our original wall and then the new wall. But our wall angle right here wants to be 45 degrees. So I'm just going to switch this to 45 degrees. Okay, and hit go. Now, since we're in a tool that believes it wants all these flange angles to be open to the side view, we have to put a negative in here because that would actually be backdrafted. But it's made by a flange die, so it has nothing to do with really manufacturing. So now when we go with that, we get a proper flange built. So now we have a fillet that hits the proper horizon line. So the theoretical now is the exact same opening shape when viewed or perceived by the customer. It's the same exact height or width all the way around, and it has the proper flange angle. Okay. All right. So now we have that perfect at the top. Now what we need to do is have it at the bottom corners be vary so that it goes from 45 degrees to 0. Now, what we can do there is go down to the bottom here, and right now control option variables is the radius size, and we want to make variable the flange angle, okay? And then I'm just going to go down here, and I'm going to shift and click, and that's going to add in a little manipulator for me, and then I can grab this angle and type in 0 and hit the space bar. Okay, so now that flange is basically wrapping around that radius, and it's unwrapping so that it's 0 here, and then as it goes up around to the top of the fender, and if I go to the straight side view, you'll see it here, as it moves up and around here, that flange points up on 45 degrees. And then all I have to do, oops, sorry for the zoom, mouse is a little sketchy. All I have to do is come down to this side, shift and click on that original line, lets me put a section in. Left mouse button on the point lets me place that, select this, and make it 0. And I must have 2 sections lying on top of each other. I do. So I accidentally I clicked on that manipulator and moved it. So I'm just going to move that manipulator back up here to the top location, hit the space bar, and now we have 45 to 0 and 0. Okay. Now, next couple little things I might do here is I would probably turn on explicit control. I'm going to raise this to 6, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to select Bezier so I get Bezier surfaces, hit the space bar, and now I get, you know, a nice layout of 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges to 5 flanges to create that opening, maybe 6 right there, and I get a nice proper opening line. And last step, sorry, I'll query edit this, is I'm going to go down here and I am going to extend this, click this arrow to extend this, and turn on auto trim. And now if we hit our shading, I should be able to see that I have a flange that's open in the side view here, wraps up under the fender so that up here it's 45 degrees, and then unwraps back to 0 down here. And in reality, what we've really done is in this side view, that horizon of that fillet right there is exactly the same as that orange flange that we created. If you look all the way around this opening, now the opening as perceived by the customer is exactly the same as the original orange piece that we wanted, right? So our fillet goes up and just touches off on that, and then you can see right here the flange is straight in the side, and then that flange disappears and then reappears at this end. Okay. Maybe one interesting tip here might be if you want to see sections all the way around that, we could go to our section tool right here, and I could say new pick or radial, okay? And it's going to say pick a curve or an isoparm. So I'm just going to select, you know what? I bet we could just simply select this edge and shift key this edge. That's going to give us all of our sections, okay? And you could add more. Maybe I want, whatever, 18. Okay, and I can close this tool, close this tool. So each of those sections is being cut radially. I can turn this off now, and if I turn off my shading, we can see that as I go around this opening line, and I might even turn off my model here, and you can see straight, angled, angled, more, more. As we get around to the top, we get a very acute angle, and then we unwrap as we go around the side. So those are some couple of tips for how to use the variable flange angle to create a horizon line that's perfect while you create an engineering-based flange. So hope that helps in your daily work. Take care.